Hey everyone, it's Kellen from RacerX with another race examination, and this week we're talking about Kevin Windham over on RacerXOnline.com because Steve Mathis wrote this long-form article about the lost seasons Kevin Windham had when he elected to retire back in 2002. But we're talking about the 2010 Salt Lake City Supercross here today, and the reason why is because this one has a very special sentimental moment for Kevin Windham in this race. But this was a very unique race because it had actually snowed the morning before the race, so when everybody got to the track that morning, there was a light dusting of snow on the track, and by the time the race got underway later that evening, it was very cold outside, and a little bit of rain was starting to fall towards the end of the main events as well, and you can see even before the main events that there was some rain falling on the track, and it was just a complete muddy, mucky mess, a quagmire of a race. So by the time things got underway in the main event, it was going to be a wild race for sure, and right off the get-go, it was Windham who pulled alongside Davey Millsaps and grabbed the whole shot. And I want to actually go back and talk about this start because there's a couple things you never see anymore. We would have seen a right-handed first turn if Indy had ran this year, but this is a right-handed first turn, if that's what you want to call it. It's barely a turn, and then it leads into a whoop section, which again is another thing you really don't see that often in Supercross these days. They're very careful about not putting something that's treacherous like a whoop section right after a first turn, or even on a straightaway going into the first turn in this situation. So a very unique track here in Salt Lake City, and early on it was Windham and Millsaps battling for the lead in the opening couple laps, and Windham getting passed here by Davey, but then cuts back underneath and says, "Take that right back," kind of shoves him into the tough blocks and goes on his merry way. But look at this. Due to the conditions, they cut down the second set of whoops, but for some reason left the first set of whoops relatively alone. Like, that's a pretty normal tall set of whoops in the first set. The second set just completely cut down. So kind of interesting little tidbit there. But here's Windham just looking gorgeous as ever out front. He actually lapped Ryan Dungey in this race, and Dungey had clinched the championship the week prior at Seattle, so he wasn't really interested in going out and breaking his back to try to win this thing in the mud. But he was just down the field kind of meandering around, and Windham did eventually lap him in this race, as we saw. But here it is, the 18th and final Supercross victory of Kevin Windham's career back in 2010 at Salt Lake City. Of course it would be in the mud because Windham was always really, really good in these tricky and technical conditions, and here he is. This is just such a good moment to remember Kevin Windham by after his final career Supercross win. Just big smile on his face, shining through with all the mud and muck on his helmet and his jersey and his neck brace there. Just that big smile on his face just tells a huge story about who Kevin Windham was and why he was such a special talent in our sport. But definitely go check out Kevin Windham's Lost Seasons on RacerXOnline.com right now, and that's a look back at 2010 Salt Lake City.